Hi guys, so I've got some of my drawings done and I'm ready to add my colorful sky. Again, remember that the landscapes in these are going to stay black and white, and the sky is going to be colored using the wet and wet technique using watercolor. Again, we're going to be looking at making that sky out of analogous color choices. So the first thing you're going to want to do is what you've been seeing me do here on the video, and that is just make sure that all of your graphite is gone from your drawing. I've got another one here that I've done earlier. I got the little beach scene inked. It still needs to be erased. Just really, you know, if you're using ink, give it just a little time to dry before you erase. I'm using my kneaded eraser. This is pretty gentle on the paper and doesn't leave a bunch of residue behind that would interfere with watercolor. Let's see, we've got another one here. This is the one that was inspired by the view from Lookout Mountain. I did leave the bottom part of the circle open. I thought it was kind of neat that this hit the edge of the circle. I'm gonna leave that. Typically I would erase all of the pencil marks, but I think in this case, since it's shaped, I'm gonna leave the pencil mark at the top so I can see where to put my watercolor. Hopefully you've tried lots of different formats, maybe some circular ones. Again, I made the circle using a coffee mug. Maybe you use some shaped ones if you had some tape. Maybe you just cut some different shaped rectangles, be they square or rectangular or like more panoramic like this one. So again, the next step is we are going to get some color in these skies using the wet and wet technique. I'm going to demonstrate that for you. But the other thing to note is that you really want to be sure that you are using analogous colors. So when we look at analogous colors, we look at the hues on our color wheel. And analogous colors are like next door neighbors. So they're colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. So I could, for instance, go like yellow, yellow-orange, orange, red-orange, maybe even up into red if I chose to. I could also do something like blue to blue-violet to violet to red-violet. That would be a good choice too. You know, I could cross like between warm and cool colors. Like maybe I could have, you know, something that started over at red-orange and went into the blue-violet. So long as they are next to each other on the color wheel, that is going to make them analogous. So you wouldn't want to just like randomly pick colors off of different points of the color wheel. They need to be next to each other. So when you're picking from hues, we do have the option to choose hues, which is, you know, just the regular color. You can also have, for free, any tints of those hues, so that's those hues plus white, and any shades of those hues, so the hues that you choose plus black. All of those would fit within that analogous color scheme, okay? So I've got my watercolor kit here. And I'm going to scoop this up so you can see my watercolor kit. So there we go. I do have a cup of clean water also here that I'm going to be using, and I've got a cup of water that I've been using on some of my paintings. So I'm going to clean my brush off, and for this wet into wet technique, first of all, let me think about what colors do I want to use. I think I'm going to go for maybe something in this color range, yellow into some of these oranges, maybe some peachy colors. So I'm going to work with this range for this particular one in my sky. So I've got my watercolors here. All right, and if your paints like pop up like this, you can just pop them back in. They pop in and out so we can replace them if you run out of color, which is handy, but sometimes a little distracting when you're working. So wet into wet technique simply means that you are working with wet paint onto a wet surface. So what you need to do is start in your sky, and just using clear water, you want to carefully wet just the sky only. Don't go down over your landscape. Now you don't want to do the whole thing at once, just you're going to have to do it little sections at a time and blend it together. If you try to wet the whole thing, the place that you started wetting is going to be dry before you get to the other side. So you have to kind of work in little bits. All right. I think I want it to almost be like, kind of like sunset maybe. So going from like yellowy into some more yellow orange colors. So I'm going to mix up some of my colors here I might like. Definitely going to want a yellow orange. And I'm sort of adding some water to make it thinner here. Maybe I want kind of a peachy color too. Has a little more red in it. Okay, I think I want to start the base out with some yellows though. So I'm going to pick up some yellows in my brush, and I just go over to the area that's wet. And you can see that color is just going to start moving through the water. You can keep on sort of dabbing it around to keep it spreading. I changed over from that obelisk to like some kind of radio tower kind of thing. I'm sure you saw in the video. The obelisk just wasn't working for me. And I thought the radio tower might be a more exciting shape. Kind of funny how the weight of it is so odd to one side. So I'm getting a little bit more water, clean water. Well, actually at this point my water's got a tiny bit of yellow in it. That's okay. I should have been probably cleaning my brush off more in my other water bucket, but this is okay. We're going to go with it. This is all going to be, this painting is all going to have analogous colors that have a little bit of yellow in them anyway. So if there's a tiny bit of yellow in my water, it's going to be all right. All right, so I could go up as high as I wanted to with this yellow. I don't have to do it in bands or anything. It could be kind of just all over the place. I want to keep on wetting the page, okay? So now I'm going to add a little bit more just as clean water as I can. Clean up the page, and that yellow is going to go up a little bit. I'm going to come in with some of my reddish oranges and see what happens. All right. Now in the exercise where we did the color wheel, I asked you guys to mix all of your own colors, all of your own secondary colors. But, you know, if you want to mix the orange that comes in the kit with some other things here to get some different colors, you certainly may. I think it's always more exciting to mix some colors together rather than to just go with the color that's right in the palette. It's going to make your work look more complex. The colors that are in the kit already are kind of those Crayola colors that are in every, you know, kid's art kit. So if you mix the colors together, it's going to make your work look more unique. So try, you know, mixing some different colors together to make your own versions of color. You can let your brush like be a little streaky. You can kind of dab in. You can sort of dot in. Everything is going to give you slightly different textures, and with the sky like this, you know, that makes it more kind of cloudy and soft looking, so that's good. So I've got a lot of soft colors. I'm going to maybe mix up something more of a red-orange. Maybe a little bit more aggressive colored. Because I think I want it to go from light to sort of darker at the edges, the top. You can do a lot of things with this too. You know, you can wait till it dries and you can paint more over top of it. So if you wanted to put a couple little wisps of cloud in specific places and you let this dry 100%, you can come back in and add to it without it moving around like it does now. The reason it's bleeding right now so much is because I'm painting wet into wet. If I were to let it totally dry, I could come back and add to it without all this movement. But right now what I'm looking for is a lot of movement, so it's okay. I'm gonna try just a little bit more red here to get some variety of color. Get all those different analogous colors. All right. And you can keep playing with this till you get it in a way that you like it. Something I can also show you here is if you know, there's a number of ways to alter this while it's still wet. So if you take just like a little piece of paper, you can come back in and add texture with just a little piece of paper. So if I want to get a little texture here, you can also, while this is wet, I've got a little bit of salt here. You can take and sprinkle salt over the surface. I'm not sure if you can see it, but the salt sort of repels the water and the color that's directly around it, and it makes little flecks in your surface. So if you use salt, you know, you put it in while it's still wet like this, and when it's dry, you come back and you use the tip of your finger to gently rub the salt away. You can also use just rubbing alcohol. Let's see if we can zoom in for a minute here and get a better view of what it's going to do. There we go. Okay. So if I get a little rubbing alcohol, all right, so if I get a little rubbing alcohol, I can, got a little bit just in my hand here. You can use a clean brush to apply it. You can also, you know, just put it on with your finger. You're gonna see, maybe you'll be able to see in the video a little bit, that it makes the water spread away in the area where you apply it. It's kind of fun just to splatter it on. You could paint it on with specific intention with a brush as well. But that's going to just give you a little bit more texture in your watercolor. Again, when this dries, I'd want to carefully rub that salt away. So, you know, here's a good example of using analogous colors. If you accidentally get inside of something that you want to remain black and white, just clean your brush off really, really well. Use a little bit of white to pick up what you accidentally got in that area. Not a little bit of white, sorry. Just a little bit of clean water and a tissue, and you can pick up anything that you didn't mean to go inside a white area. I think I had a little bit of alcohol just splatter into that area. So anyway, so this is a nice grouping of analogous colors to kind of make a sunset sort of feeling. There are many different analogous groups that you can try out. I've got a couple different ones. It's just, you know, really fun to experiment with creating these different analogous groups. to create some texture and color in your pieces. So here's a good example of like red, orange. This one goes all the way from sort of a yellow orange into a violet. And this is actually what the salt looks like if you put salt on the page and then wipe it away. So I put salt on this page and wiped it away. This is the kind of texture you get with salt. It's almost like a little firework texture. So it's really fun to try. What else have we got here? This is another one that is done. And this is analogous colors, blue-green, all the way into like a blue-violet up here. This is, the background of this is done with the alcohol. So those little puddles that you see, those were from the alcohol. When I was done with the painting, you know, if you choose to, you can do this step. I took just a white gel pen and I added some tiny stars and a crescent moon and some other little details of shooting stars in the background just to give some extra detail. You can do this with a pen like this, a gel pen. You could use a small paint pen if you've got a small paint pen. You could even use just white paint and a little brush to do this. You might try something like a whiteout pen if you've got that, or even like little white chalk or a white pastel would do this as well. So with something this small, I like the gel pen for it. This is not required, this little last touch. I just wanted to do it to add some more texture and detail to my piece. I hope you guys enjoy creating your landscapes. Again, you're going to make at least 4. They should all have analogous color schemes. So really look at your color wheel and make sure that you're putting together some analogous color schemes for each one. Try something different in each one. It would be boring to make them all the same. So I want to see at least 4 different paintings. All right. I can't wait to see what you guys come up with.